It was unintentional. So it's been quite a while since I've posted anything, and there's a pretty good reason for that.
Oh no, did he have a little spit up? Did he have... Yeah, I had a little spit up.
Yeah, so Mr. Silas, as we named him, has been here for 2.5 months. And as you have noticed by the title of this video, it was a pretty crazy story. But of course, like I said, totally unintentional. I had a midwife. We were planning a home birth. And as I explained in one of the vlogs previously, the midwife was the same midwife that brought me into this world 24 years ago. So it was very special to have her, to have found her, and not only that, but have her remember details about my own birth and my brother's birth. And it was just incredible having her, and she did such an amazing job. So about 36-ish weeks, I had a prenatal visit, and my blood pressure had risen, and the whole pregnancy had been perfect, but these last minute, you know, worries and stresses had brought it up. And my midwife warned me, hey, you know, if this continues on, you won't be able to have a home birth. And you know, that freaked me out. I called my husband, and then I called my dad, you know, fretting, you know, because I had been, you know, planning and putting so much work into being able to have this natural home birth. And I did not want to be transferred. You know, I feel more comfortable at home. My mom, you know, birthed me at home. You know, the midwife that I had is the one that delivered me into this world 24 years ago. So I did not want to be transferred. I wanted to, you know, experience what my mom had experienced 4 times. You know, she had my older brother in a hospital, but after that she was like, you know, we can totally do this at home. So I put myself through a boot camp that week, you know, eating healthier, cutting out salt, you know, trying to de-stress. I had finally gotten everything done so that I actually could, and I borrowed my mom's blood pressure monitor so that I could keep an eye on my blood pressure and see if I'm making any progress with that. And I was worried because, you know, I had a week to do this, and each day, like, you know, sometimes it'd be okay, you know, and then other times it'd be out of control. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do if she comes and, you know, it's out of control still, you know. And so she comes, and thankfully, you know, it was perfect. She said, you know, we're good to proceed. And I remember, you know, being super joyful for my husband. I remember calling my dad, because I'd called him before she even came, you know, again, expressing my worries. And, you know, I called him and I just let him know the good news. And now, fast forward 9 hours later, I'm 37 weeks. And I'm sitting right here. And it was 12 a.m. on July 12th, and I'm just scrolling on social media, and suddenly, TMI, there's a birth video, so I'm sure you expect that, but I get these diarrhea pains. And so I run off to the restroom, you know, have diarrhea. It's like really, really bad. And again, TMI, but I start having these like stabbing sensations in my bumhole. And so that happens for about 10 minutes before I get on social media, and I just ask in this natural birth support group that I'm a part of, you know, asking the moms, like, what could this be? Is it like a stomach bug? Like, and somebody suggested that it could be early labor, and then every comment after that was agreeing with it. And I was like, no, I'm 37 weeks, I'm a first-time mom. But I was like, you know, I never expected to go early. Like, I expected to go maybe 41 weeks, maybe 42 if I'm allowed to go that far. So somebody suggested, you know, just time these surges that you keep getting, you know, it could be contractions. So I started doing that, and lo and behold, there's a pattern to these. They were very close apart, lasting for about like 30 seconds to 1 minute each. And I was like, man, I mean, could this really be contractions? But I still highly doubted it. But nevertheless, my midwife instructed me, you know, if I go into labor, to not just lay around and be relaxed, but to get things going, you know, take a walk, you know, bounce on a birth ball. And so I chose to bounce on the birth ball since, you know, it's super late at night. and that became too painful very quickly. So I came back up here. I was on all fours on the floor. I'm literally shaking at this point, and I wake my husband up. I'm like, Josh, and he is like, and he like lifts his head and his eyes are like bloodshot, and he's like, huh? And I'm like, I think I could be in labor. I'm not sure, but if I am, it'd be a long time before anything gets going really heavily. So just go back to sleep, you know, I'll deal with it, you know, because there's nothing that I felt that he could do at that point. So I didn't want to keep him up all night. And by then it's like 12:30. It started becoming unbearable, and I went into the bathroom. I turned on the water. I was going to get in the tub, but you know, I was hesitant because it's like, you know, if it is labor, this could stop it. But I kind of wanted it to stop. I didn't, like, I was in so much pain. I was like, you know what, that sounds like a great idea. So I wake my husband up again because the pain was so intense that I felt like that I needed his support already. And he comes in there, you know, still a little groggy, still waking up, and I start complaining to him. I'm like, if this is early labor, how am I gonna make it through? Like, I am such a wuss. Like, I didn't expect it to be this hard. Like, I knew it was gonna be hard, but not this early. And he's just, you know, comforting me, supporting me. And eventually, even though I was really hesitant, I asked him to call my midwife, you know, because we didn't know what was going on for sure. I certainly didn't know if I was in labor or not because I'd never been through it before. I didn't know what contractions felt like, and I always imagined that they would feel like menstrual cramps, not diarrhea pain. And so I finally tell him to call my midwife, and he calls her. You know, she says, you know, based on what's going on, it could be early labor. And at that point, when we were on the phone with her, Josh was like, uh-oh. And, you know, I looked at him and I looked down and there was blood filling the tub. And I mean, inwardly, I freaked out because I was like, I don't think I've ever seen this happen in early labor. Like, in all the videos that I've watched, women's labored for hours before anything like that happened. And so I was scared. I was almost like, you know, what's happening? Like, this is not normal. And, you know, my midwife, you know, explained again, you know, it's okay, it's normal. You could be in early labor, but if you want me to come now, I'll come, or whenever you think you need me, just let me know. She said also that if I get to a point where I can't talk, call her immediately. And to be honest, I really wanted her to come then just because I was a little scared, but I didn't tell her to because it's like, what if I'm not even in labor? Like, have my midwife drive an hour just for me not to be in labor, and she had already driven, you know, 9 hours earlier to come see me for the home visit. So I didn't want to make her come again, you know, especially because, I mean, she had just been here 9 hours ago. 9 hours ago. Like, what are the chances of me going into labor now? So I'm just sitting there in the tub. I am breathing through these. I'm praying out loud just for God to help me, to, you know, give me strength to make it through this. And, you know, in the meantime, my husband's, you know, to continue to verbally support me, continuing to make sure I'm hydrated, and just being an overall encouragement. I really couldn't have made it through without him. And so I was sitting on my back. I kept feeling these small urges to push, and every time I would push, I'd get a little bit of relief. But, you know, I never suspected that the baby was coming. I just pushed because my body wanted me to. So every time, you know, I get a little bit of relief, and I'm not talking a whole lot. I'm just trying, I'm sweating at this point. I'm still shaking because the pain is just getting more and more severe. And so I've moved on to all fours again, and suddenly I get these very strong urges to push. And so I start doing that. My husband's like, are you okay? And I just shook my head, and I wasn't talking, you know, he kept trying to talk to me. And so he called the midwife, and she said, I'm on my way. So, you know, I just kept pushing and pushing, and I couldn't understand, like, you know, how long is my body just gonna force me to push? Because I really had no choice to just push, you know, bearing down. And so I decided to reach up there and just see what was happening, and I felt something hard as a rock, and I'm like, oh, I think it's his head, you know. And I tell my husband that. He tells the midwife, because she stayed on the phone with us after, you know, gearing up to come our way. And shortly after, what I thought was the head bursted, and so thankfully it wasn't the head, it was just my water breaking. And you know, it just gushes everywhere. It was like a classic movie scene, but thankfully I was already in water, so it didn't matter. You know, he's like, you know, how fast do you think the baby will be here? And she's like, 5 minutes. And although I heard that, you know, it didn't really register to me that she said that, because I was just so focused on what I was doing. And my husband was like, oh really? And then behind that I felt something else, but this felt really weird. I didn't know if it was a head or what it was, so I didn't really say anything. I just continued pushing and pushing, and you know, my husband's sitting there with me, and suddenly with one big push I looked down and his head had popped out, and he was facing the backside, and while he was in there, his face turned to face me, and I'm looking at him. I said, there's his head. And my husband's like, oh, Hannah said that she felt the head. I said, no, his head's hanging between my legs. And he's like, what? And then right then, and as he was repeating that to the midwife, his entire body falls out of me and safely into my hands. Like, he didn't even hit the water, because I had the water maybe like that high, and he just falls into my hands and he starts screaming, and I'm like, I couldn't believe it. Like, he's just sitting there in my hands, and I come back and I just put him against my chest, and I'm coming up on my knees, and I'm just like breathing a sigh of relief. He's okay, nothing's wrong, you know, he's breathing okay, there's nothing wrapped around his neck. And I hear the midwife laughing over the phone as she hears the baby screaming, and my husband, you know, he's like crying tears of joy. And I'm just so exhausted. I'm just sitting there in disbelief, because my labor was 1 hour and 30 minutes from beginning to end. And I just like thanking God inwardly, like I didn't even know it had been that quick. I knew it was quick, but I didn't know it was that quick. And I looked at my husband, and you know, my midwife, you know, asked, you know, what's the setting, and he tells her that I'm in the tub still, and she said, you know, I need to get out of the tub, and just to create a quick place on the floor with me, because we didn't have time to get anything prepared. You know, I was supposed to strip the beds, put a waterproof mattress sheet on it, you know, I was supposed to get all these things ready, and I didn't have time to get anything ready, because I didn't think I was in labor for half of my labor. You know, I'm going through these terrible pains. I'm actually in transition. You know, I had no idea. So while I'm thinking that I'm a failure, that I'm a wuss, I'm never gonna get through this, I was already in transition. I was already on the verge of being done. So I get out of the tub, I lay on the floor on the little place my husband prepared for me. There was like a pillow against the wall, and he had like a waterproof little mat underneath me, and I'm holding Silas. And you know, he's praying over Silas, you know, just thanking God. And at that point my midwife was only 20 minutes away, so we wasn't able to cut the cord or anything yet, so we just waited till she got here. And when she arrived, she came in the door with her student assistant midwife, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like spread eagle on the floor, blood's everywhere. It looked like a massacre occurred, and I'm like, I had hoped to look more dignified when y'all got here. And they just laughed, and after making sure that I was okay, that the baby was okay, that I didn't lose a ton of blood or need to be transferred or anything, and weighing him and all the things that come afterward, they just left us to bond, and that's how he was born. So we are super thankful and just praise God that it was a quick labor and delivery, that everything went smoothly despite not having help. We weren't really scared the whole time, despite my little, you know, scare with the blood thing, but we didn't really have time to be scared, because, you know, as my husband says, it went from shock to immediate joy. So we're just thankful that he's okay, and we couldn't have asked for a better birth experience. And so that's how he was born.